was a really hot summer in southern Indiana this past year. So much so that our lawn looked like fuzz-covered pottery, if you can get that picture. The soil was baked so hard that even the little rain we got would just run right off it. If I'd ever tried to plant anything in my backyard or front yard, I would have had to use a jackhammer just to break up the soil. You know, Jesus used soil as a metaphor for the condition of human hearts in his parable of the sower. It's one of his most memorable parables, and it is found in all three synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. In it, Jesus describes four types of ground: a hard-packed pathway, stony ground with shallow soil, a briar patch, and fertile soil. As Jesus explains in answer to his apostles' questions about the parable's meaning, these types of soil represent the receptivity of different people to his teachings. Just like our yard this past summer, no seed could ever penetrate the hard-packed pathway soil. Nothing could take root on it. And some people's hearts are like thin soil on the rocks. The Word of God sprouts in their hearts and it grows for a short while. But since their roots are shallow, meaning not deeply committed to Jesus and his teachings, they wither and die at the first sign of trouble. Still others' hearts are receptive, but full of distractions, briars. These distractions compete for their attention, and just as weeds can take over an entire yard, these distractions eventually choke out everything else in their lives. And finally, some people's hearts are like soil that is ready for planting. When the Word of God is sown in those hearts, it blossoms and it produces fruit. Jesus applies the teaching of this particular parable to individuals. In other places, he tells his followers to bypass whole towns which are not receptive to his teachings. In the church, we have broadened the concept to talk about whole countries where people are eager to hear about Jesus Christ, like in Mexico, compared to other countries where people seem unreceptive to learning more about him, as in a place like Sweden. From our perspective, it seems easier to share the gospel and good news about Jesus in Mexico than it does in our own neighborhoods here in southwestern Indiana or wherever you may live. In general, that may be true. Biblical teaching about Jesus and his kingdom may be of interest to people in Mexico who haven't grown up with the easy access to the Bible and perhaps haven't heard all the gospel stories. On the other hand, most people, in our area at least some exposure to biblical teaching because they have a choice of so many Bible-believing churches in their areas. Perhaps this makes them less interested in what you have to say about Jesus. Then again, perhaps not. Unlike my lawn, you cannot know the condition of people's hearts just by looking at them. So we should assume that people are interested until they tell us that they're not. The only sure way to test the ground is to share what you know about Jesus Christ with someone. Whether or not his message takes root in their hearts is completely out of your hands. But you can share it regardless. Proving Grounds from DeHart.